Now, a year ago, Bashar al-Assad's decade-long isolation from the rest of the Arab world ended with a visit to the United Arab Emirates. A year later, Assad was back in Abu Dhabi today, meeting the Emirati President Mohammed bin Zayed, and the timing is auspicious, coming just a week after Saudi Arabia reestablished relations with Assad's patron, Iran. Could today's visit be laying the groundwork for a similar rapprochement between Riyadh and Damascus? Well, for more, let's go to the UAE and our Dubai correspondent, Bastien Borie. And Bastien, let's talk about what's at stake, both for Syria and the UAE in today's meeting.
Well, first, Calev, this visit by Bashar al-Assad is anything but a coincidence, simply because he's been officially invited. And this is the result of several years of reflection led by Arab countries such as the UAE, but also Egypt, as the withdrawal of the US from the Middle East became more and more obvious. How to build unity in the region to promote its development, this is the issue that the Emiratis, among others, want to solve. A political unity first, which involves getting closer to Russia and Turkey, whose foothold in the Middle East has increased considerably, notably since their military operations in northern Syria, and then an economic unity, because Syria is a large market with opportunities and strategically positioned between the East and the West. That said, Syria is clearly no longer a priority for the UAE. Adjusting to the challenges of the war in Ukraine has become a consuming task for the Gulf countries, who do not consider the spread of armed groups and terrorism in Syria, in addition to the increasing influence of Iran there, as a major threat anymore, partly because the Iranian influence is countered by persistent Israeli strikes in Syria at the moment.
Right. Well, certainly economically, Syria could gain from these renewed relations with the UAE. But I think the big prize for Bashar al-Assad would be a full rapprochement with Saudi Arabia. And the question is the UAE kind of testing the waters for Saudi Arabia, bringing him in and maybe leading him down a road that will take him to Riyadh eventually?
Absolutely. Assad's regime will achieve its biggest breakthrough when Saudi Arabia renormalizes relations and Damascus returns to the Arab League. Saudi Arabia has opposed the Syrian government throughout the country's civil war, particularly for its close alliance with Iran. Yes, now things have changed, but Riyadh still expects reforms and reduction of Tehran's influence in Syria before any kind of normalization with Damascus. Will that happen anytime soon? It's pretty unlikely, Calev, because we have to remember that Saudi Arabia's leverage on Syria is still pretty minimal at the end of the day.
Right, but there are issues, certainly many issues, dividing Syria and Saudi Arabia. For example, Lebanon has been a field in which they've come at conflict, really backing sort of competing parties. Could Iran's rapprochement with Saudi Arabia ease some of those tensions that will enable it? Maybe also Iran paving a way for Syria in Saudi Arabia.
Well, you know, as to these two invitations, Assad, who is already in the UAE, and Raisi, who will go to Saudi Arabia, as we saw today, it's in the same way anything but a coincidence that they are announced on the same day. It is a proof that the Saudis and Emiratis are aligning themselves a little more with the so-called Chinese peace plan, that is to say the end of this Cold War spirit of blocs confrontation, to develop, on the contrary, a cooperation between all the emerging countries, including Saudi Arabia and Iran, which is similar to what the non-aligned movement was trying to achieve in let's say, the 1950s, 60s. And this invitation sent to the Iranian president by Riyadh, which comes only a few days after, as you said, the normalization agreement between the two countries, is a new victory for China in the region. We can see that the Saudis are using Beijing to counter the Iranian threat, but also to obtain security guarantees that they can no longer obtain from the United States.
Well, you can show one country that's not happy to see Bashar al-Assad in the United Arab Emirates is here in Israel. Bastien Borie, thank you for that.